over here. Hello. So let's start off with our verse. The verse of the day as we talk about this topic is Psalm 25:16. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. Loneliness. So, most of those who have been following me know that I talk about the fact that we are in a mental health epidemic, but we're also in a loneliness epidemic. And that's been going on since before 2020, since before the pandemic, but it has actually accelerated since that time. So the statistics that I'm going to share are basically just for the United States. And this, I tell you, goes across economic status, it goes across ages. I'll give you some data for the two spectrums, but this goes about across wealth, this goes across our professional athletes, our physicians, our professionals, our amateur athletes, for day workers, day laborers. It goes across all of these spectra. Unfortunately, loneliness impacts half of the US population. Half. That's huge. I talk about depression and treatment-resistant depression. I've talked about anxiety. I've talked about trauma. Of course, I'm a certified trauma specialist, and I've done a lot of work in a variety of areas. But just let me tell you, huge thing, loneliness. 50% of people have indicated that they have fallen into long periods of loneliness. And guess what? It's not just important for mental health. When I talk about mental health, it is never just about mental health. Yes, it starts in the mind and there's a mindset perspective. And yes, there's some portions that start in the brain as well. However, it always impacts the rest of your body because the head and the neck are connected to the rest of the body. Okay. 30%, that's the number I want you to think about, whether it's 29%, 30, 32%. In that realm is where all the badness lies. I hate to tell you that 29% of people that deal with chronic loneliness, they are at increased risk of heart disease, premature death by heart disease. 32% from stroke. And unfortunately, dementia is way higher, 50%. So 50% of the US population and 50% of people who deal and struggle with long-term loneliness are at increased risk, unfortunately, of death or adverse health outcome related to dementia. Okay. Now, yes, I did say that it impacts all different groups of people. We used to think it was mostly the elderly, and they're still in there. There's still significant loneliness among that group. But guess who is the hardest group at this point in time? It's actually very scary. It's our young adults. 18 to 24 are indicating that they feel lonely or are experiencing more loneliness. And this is regardless of whether or not they are in school, whether they're employed, whether they're not employed, whether they're working for themselves or entrepreneurs. But they are still experiencing loneliness for a variety of reasons. Everything from the fact that there's now more remote work to the fact that we don't have the same social spaces that we used to be able to have or that we used to be able to go to. Some of those spaces no longer exist. I've seen the younger group of kids who are like, well, where's a place for me to go, right? And they're like, other than being on my video game or my social media, and maybe connecting with people from social media, chat rooms, things like that. Most of my friend groups are all over the world, all over the country. It's not like I can just go around the corner to the local club and hang out with them. Okay. So because of that, all of those things are impacting and adding to the epidemic of loneliness. This is something that I want to be able to share with you guys. Notice I've got this nice little rose, and you can probably see the bouquet in the background for those who are on TikTok, and for those who are on IG and Facebook, you more than likely can see my rose bush and then my lovely herb plants in the background over here, my hydroponics over here. So here's what I want to tell you, a little story. I love telling stories. So when I was growing up, my grandmother always had about an acre garden. Most of my family, because they came from sharecropper stock, had gardens, many acres of gardens. But one of the things that I remember my mom distinctly had that was different from everyone else my mother had a rose garden. And so even though she planted nothing but roses, which kind of seems very isolative, you don't have vegetables and flowers. You don't have the squash, the corn, the beans, all of the other little lovelies that I have in my little garden now. You don't have all those things. It sounds kind of lonely. But one thing that I noticed was that in her rose garden, she always had multiple rose bushes. And each rose bush was something different, very unique in and of itself. I mean, things like Tropicana roses. And I thought roses were just red roses or maybe pink, maybe white. But the variety of roses that I remember my mother having, each very unique, but then also different. They would gather in and of themselves in their own little garden. But then also you could see again that each of them were their own, they were just so unique. Each of them had their own story to tell. But it was a rose garden. That was it. It was just one kind of flower, and that one kind of flower was the rose. Now, the rose by itself would make a lovely bouquet. We all know with the different holidays, the dozen of roses is kind of like the epitome of romance. But personally, I actually enjoy bouquets, and this is actually a bouquet of flowers from one of my mother's gardens. And in it, you have not just the rose, but you also have a bunch of other flowers here. You've got the carnations, and I think there's some lilies in there, and some other beautiful flowers, and they're lovely, and they're all lovely. Thank you for Mother's Day, by the way, for those people that gifted me with so many beautiful flowers for Mother's Day. I appreciate that. But when this individual rose gets grouped with all these other beautiful flowers that come from all kinds of different places, literally all over the world, that come together, to me, that bouquet is just so much more lovely, right? Just because there's the loveliness of the different flowers, the different colors. Some are poofy, some are soft, some are very small, some are broad, some are more green and leafy based, some are only green, while as others have colors and greenery. What's the point? The point is that if you enjoy being alone, let's say you are neurodiverse and socialization is very difficult for you. Well, you can be that lone plucked rose as I just had. But guess what? Over time, even with the right nutrients and water, this is not a forever rose. And eventually this rose is going to decay. And it's going to die, because I do believe we were created for some type of socialization. So even if you find out that you are a little different than others, you think differently, you act differently, maybe you're embracing your weirdness, find a garden of people that are like you. You can still be unique. You can still be an individual in your own unique rose garden. But then what's going to happen is you're going to learn to thrive amongst groups of people that enjoy you, that like you, that are blessed by what you have to offer. So even if you find yourself being that lovely rose, but just a little bit unique, thrive within your garden. Maybe a portion of that does mean that you connect with others on social media, or you connect with others through the internet. Vet people, of course, and there's wonderful ways to learn about doing that. You can Google that or use your own favorite search engine. But then once you do that, make sure that you're doing things to kind of keep yourself planted and rooted to the things that grow you, right? You need to be in good soil. You need to be a part of another group of people that are going to be a blessing to you. Okay. I've seen people that are in Zoom meetings, group chats, folks that have started out individually in groups that there are people from all over the country, all over the world. And then they've planned meetups for hiking groups or for gaming events or for, I do a lot of obstacle course races, but they're meeting up for Spartans or Decas or Mud Girls or Mud Runs or whatever, right? So you don't have to bloom alone. If you are the person that you want other people around you, you want to socialize, and it's a struggle for you, there's probably an app for that, and there's probably a group for that. There is likely a bouquet waiting for you, a bouquet where some people are on the autism spectrum, some people are neurosparkly or neurodiverse, some people have ADHD, some people are neurotypical, Some people are green thumbs. Some people are brown thumbs. Some people are thriving and ready to bloom. Some people that smell so sweet. Some people that smell kind of stinky. And then there are going to be people that don't really look like they're doing very much, but trust me, they're adding to the bouquet. Okay. If those are the group of people that you need to find them. There is a group out there for you. If you need a little prep work, there are some wonderful groups that can help you with socialization. I love Autism Society because they've got some wonderful socialization groups for people that are on the spectrum for level 1, 2, and 3. Absolutely love the groups through NAMI and Mental Health America, especially NAMI. I've worked with them for many, many years. I've been on the previous boards for NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. There's usually ones that are county, sometimes state specific, but usually county specific. And if it's a very broad county, multiple ones of them will sometimes connect together. But if they do that, that just means there's more opportunities to meet like-minded folks. But there really is no reason for you to have to be lonely. Okay. Now, sometimes being isolated or distancing yourself is not a bad thing. You guys know I'm a Jesus girl, and I absolutely love talking about Jesus. I think we can learn a lot about the life that was lived on earth. There were many, many times that he pulled away for the purpose of just being alone, so that he could pray, become rejuvenated, and then go back out there. I've had many, many people that I've seen, patients especially, who have said they get exhausted and incredibly tired when they're interacting with lots of people or engaging with people. Even sometimes folks that they know, it's very exhausting. So they have to have time to pull away. If you love someone that way, if you support someone that way, please give them that kind of time that they need to socially regroup. That you may be the social butterfly that can go from event. I used to be the type that could go from a morning event to an afternoon event to an evening event. I wouldn't need anything. That evening I'd be super tired. I'd sleep, and then the next day I can get up and do it all over again. Nothing to me, right? I mean, I might be a little tired, but for the most part, I wasn't exhausted. There are people within my family, that's not their thing. They need time in between events to just go and recuperate and rest, because the socialization can be exhausting for them. Okay. Can sometimes be anxiety provoking, and other times it can be very exhausting for them. So those folks will need to pull away and just kind of recoup. If you know a person like that, give them grace and allow them to do that. Okay. They are still a part of your bouquet, but they may be the one that's kind of sticking in at the bottom. They may be more of the greenery than the outright bloom. Still makes the bouquet what it is. Because if I just had blooming flowers in here, you would notice something's missing. The greenery adds to that. So you just need to think about that. I do see a note here. It says, I feel I'm antisocial. Older I get, less I want to connect outside my fam. Not a problem, because unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way we want to look at it, as we age, a lot of times our friend circle does get closer for lots of reasons. People move away. Sometimes as we get older, some of our circle, people have passed on or transitioned. And so the people that you get to connect with is smaller. And if your family, especially if it's a large, bustling family and you guys do a whole lot together, that's more than enough socialization for some people. If you feel like you need more than that, there should be some wonderful channels. I love going to the library, looking at library sites. Libraries where I spent much of my young adulthood, because I loved books. But I love libraries because they have some wonderful opportunities for people to socialize within like groups. You know, there's the Mahjong group. There's the group that want to just do sci-fi. There's the Trekkies. They're the people that want to practice another language. You can find it in a library. I don't know if you guys have thought about that, but that's one thing about it. And for the antisocial, we'll talk about true antisocial personality disorder at another time versus just kind of being antisocial. Like, I really just don't, want to socialize right now. Again, many reasons. Jesus pulled away so he could spend time with his Father and spend time getting energized and rejuvenated and focus on his mission and not get distracted by all kinds of things. Other things for people, they might be considered, folks might say antisocial, but it's not pathological antisocial, not antisocial personality disorder. It's just right now, I don't feel like being social. You may need that time to rest. You may need that time to fill your cup up. If your cup is completely empty, if my bouquet was completely empty, this would not bloom very long. It has to have opportunities to pull back, to just re-energize. Yeah. And get that energy back. So I hope this has been really helpful for you. TikTok, I started you guys first, so I'm going to end you first. And then I'll go over and say hello to my friends who are over on Facebook, Instagram, hi, YouTube, and LinkedIn. That's who I was going to say, folks who are over on LinkedIn. So again, wherever you happen to be, bloom where you're planted, but really enjoy those nutrients of where you're planted. And if you need to be around more like-minded folks, that's totally fine. Totally fine if you end up needing to just be around a rose garden. Totally fine if you end up being that around the bouquet of folks where there's every kind of flower. Totally fine if you just need to be in the vegetable patch, right? Totally fine if you're the canopy tree that just kind of sits back and observes everything that's going on down below. And you don't always have to be out front engaging in everything. That's fine. Again, bloom where you're planted, and just share your light with somebody else, because how lovely is this, right? If I only kept this in my garden or only kept this and never share with anybody, what fun would that be? Okay. All right. You guys have a very blessed day on purpose. Take care. And for my folks that are over here again on Instagram and Facebook and all the other places, always lovely to see you. Always lovely to have you. I am going to end with the music because you guys didn't get to hear it. So as you go off, I will tell you I didn't tell TikTok who this was. Actually, I can't play the music because Facebook's going to stop it. Sorry. Well, the music was from Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite. I know, so far ago, so long ago. So as we were talking about loneliness, lonely is the only company. There is nothing wrong with being lonely because of grief and loss. Nothing wrong with being lonely because you're in a relationship and you want one thing and the other person wants something else. And you're feeling a little lonely because they're into their thing and quite content with that, but you're kind of over here feeling a little lonely. There's nothing wrong with that. There are going to be times that you may be in a crowd of people, a room full of people. There's no loneliness like being in a room full of people, a crowd of people, or being in a relationship where you're in the same room, but you feel miles and miles apart. It happens. It happens. And I understand that. And there are times that you do need to sit with that. Can't think of a better song than Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite, Lonely is the Only Company. No problem with sitting with it for a little while and just expressing it and feeling it. But then after you go through the grief process, get up and just decide, do I want to keep feeling lonely or do I want to explore other things? Again, Jesus, I don't think was lonely. I think even when he chose to be alone, he still was in constant conversation with his Father. And you can get past that grief and loss, and meander through that when you do have some times that you're sitting in meditation and quiet contemplation and reflection, having those quiet times. So the song for grieving a loss or feeling that loneliness is Lonely is the Only Company by Maxwell. The other song that I would encourage, and scripture that I would encourage, is Quiet Times. It's a group called Virtue. The original group of about 5, it's called Quiet Times. And it just talks about spending the quiet time alone in the presence of God without anybody else, just being alone but not lonely. Psalms 23 is a great verse for that as well. Okay? All righty then, people. You guys have a very blessed day on purpose. Take care.